Hi.
Oh, good. We can hear you. Yay.
Great.
Everybody, this is the beautiful Cassidy Brown.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me on, Ange.
I'm so glad that you're here. So I've been talking for a long time. I'm sure these people are sick of hearing my voice by this point.
Well,
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, like your story of ME/CFS and the Edison effect and what you're doing now?
yeah, for sure. So I had a little bit of a similar background where I thought that the fatigue started just out of the clear blue sky one day. Suddenly, bam, like a ton of bricks, I had fatigue that just kept coming back every time I would go to work. Um, but now that I look back and now that I understand more, I realize that, I had IBS for most of my life, starting as a young kid. I had depression, I had anxiety. I just had this like very strong motivation to achieve and never felt like I could rest or do nothing.
Yeah.
So that was definitely like driving me my whole life. And I can see how that's connected now, thanks to the education in your program. So for me, it started in June of 2019. And there was a lot of kind of up and down. I was diagnosed with chlamydia pneumoniae, and that was treated, which helped me feel better for a while, but then started feeling worse again. Found out I had mold, so I treated that, but it didn't quite really make me feel better either. Um, all this time, I was also working as a land surveyor. So, for those of you that don't know, that's an extremely physically demanding job. So, I was, hauling equipment through the woods, up and down hills, cutting brush with a machete, hammering stakes into the ground like all day, every day, even after the fatigue started. So, I was still doing this. I would go to work all day as well as I could. Sometimes I'd have to just sit on the ground or sit in the truck. For a while, and then I would come home and just be in bed. The anytime I wasn't working, I was in bed basically. um and so I tried cutting back. I went down to 4 days a week, I went down to 3 days a week, but I realized I was just like holding on for dear life to everything that I had been doing,
Yeah.
expecting that, oh, any day now I'll recover, any day I'll feel better and I can just go right back into doing everything I was doing before. And I think where my recovery journey actually started was in the spring of last year of 2022, when I had a pretty bad crash after it was always after some week of grueling work, traveling usually, that I didn't feel like I could say no to. And then I would come home and just be wrecked. So I finally got to a point where I was like, this is not worth it. I just can't do it anymore. So I asked my work if I could, first of all, take a couple months off. Um, and then secondly, change into a position where I would be working on a computer instead of working out in the fields, wrecking my body every day.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, and then those couple months off, that's possibly the worst I felt through the whole 4 years of my journey. I was just laying down pretty much the whole time. But in that, I finally came to a place of acceptance and realizing that I needed to live for me now, not the me that I had been, and trying to hold on to what I had been doing, but to look at like, okay, what can I do now? And maybe it's not much, but at least finding what I can do now that brings me joy. Um, so that was kind of where things really shifted for me. I also started taking LDN, which was very helpful. It didn't like cure me by any means, but it definitely gave me a boost. So I was able to start that new job after a couple months off. I would have loved to take a lot more time, but I wasn't able to get disability, so I had to return to work. But doing so in a reduced capacity, so working like about 6 hours a day, able to take breaks during the day because that was not an option when I was working in the field.
I would imagine not.
Yeah. um, So yeah, being able to take breaks and rest during the day, also just, working, sitting down, and kind of shifting from a very, very like having more physical capacity and very little cognitive capacity to completely shifting the other way, having a lot of cognitive capacity and very little physical capacity. I would like, I could walk for maybe like 5-10 minutes, but my heart rate would spike because of the POTS that I developed. So I had improved in some ways, but also not in other ways.
Sure.
And then when I started to feel a lot better, thanks to some other supplements that my doctor tried me on, I immediately completely overdid it, as one often does.
So we all do. It's
Yeah,
our
I was like,
way.
oh, let's go on a trip and like try exercising and like do these things. That why did I think I could do that? I don't know. Because I felt good,
You
so I was
felt
like, oh,
better. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
That's
let's go
why, to
for
feel
it.
better. Yep.
And that led to another pretty significant crash or wobble, as we say. And that's when I started looking around and thinking, okay, maybe I don't have this figured out yet. Maybe I need some more support. Thinking about either hiring a coach or trying another program. I had tried the Gupta program previously, and that really helped me with the acceptance piece, but it didn't do anything for my symptoms at all.
It was gut
Um,
you said?
yeah,
Oh, gut, okay.
Yeah. And there was a little bit of that, like, oh, you must be doing it wrong if it's not helping you, which I found pretty toxic.
Yeah.
Even though many of the tools in the program are quite useful, and I've even, stuck to some of them. But yeah, so that was when I was thinking about doing a program. I saw yours, um and the fact that it included mentioning issues with mold and heavy metals and these things that are mostly just ignored by the other programs I'd seen, gave me a lot of confidence to give it a try. So I did, and it was huge for me, really, really huge. I thought I knew a lot about CFS before. I had done a lot of research on my own. Ange's knowledge completely blew mine out of the water. I'm so in awe of all the research you did and then the way that you're able to present it to people. Because for me, like, I really need to know what is behind stuff. I'm not going to act on faith very well. It helps me a lot to understand those deeper levels. So yeah, understanding polyvagal theory, it was like, oh my God, I was not brain retraining that whole time. I was disassociating from my emotions and being like, I'm just not going to think about that. I feel fine. And that's not brain retraining, it turns out. Who knew?
Right, and then
So
someone other than you might be doing that and think then they don't get better. And then when people talk about brain retraining, like, yeah, I tried brain retraining for 6 months, did nothing for me. And now they're missing all the benefits that come from brain retraining because they don't realize that it wasn't what they thought it was.
exactly. And the somatic piece too. So understanding the nervous system more, understanding limbic kindling, the emotional piece, and using the somatic tools, because the Gupta is very top down. So the bottom up approach is really powerful for me. Also, like pacing, I thought I had figured out pacing, but the way that you explained it helped me understand it much more. And then feeling like I had a roadmap that I could trust for expanding, for increasing activity, was a huge relief, because I felt like I had been so haphazard in the past and I didn't really know how to gain traction or gain enough stability to expand. So that piece was huge. And understanding more about the ATP cycle and
Yeah,
why,
the
like,
energy, she's
why
talking about
does,
energy production or ATP. Yeah.
yeah, like, why does PEM happen? When you explained why PEM happened, I like ran around was telling everyone I know about the ATP cycle. And a lot of them were like, were you not paying attention in biology in like eighth grade? I was like,
I
clearly
don't
no,
think
I
any of
was
us were
not.
paying attention in
But
biology. I know I wasn't.
no. So that helped me a lot too. And just the fact that it was so comprehensive and so in depth, like, even though a lot of things were things that I had learned before, I thought I knew before, just putting it all together into that roadmap, and like that whole comprehensive piece where you're like, okay, I do this and then this, and then this, and build these habits. I actually grabbed my little like habit tracker.
Oh, look at
I have this
you.
whole list of habits I try to do every day. As you can see over here, I don't, but that's okay.
That's
I do what I
amazing
can.
though.
Um, and it each just builds and builds. So like now I'm getting up, going out in the sun every morning. That's one of the things the Inch teaches. I'm doing Pilates and stretching for like 20 minutes. I really struggled to do Pilates before. It really helps with my back pain, and I just couldn't seem to fit it in. Now it's so easy. I just do it every day in the morning. Um, I actually started doing 5 rounds of the Gupta brain retraining. I brought that back
That's
in now that I
great. That's
actually
great.
understand it.
Right.
Um, now that I know what I'm looking for, and
I'm
I
not
can
actually that familiar because I haven't taken any of these programs, so I don't actually know enough about them to know what it is that you're doing. But I think that it's amazing that you're incorporating like what works for you in those programs in, because ultimately it has to be your individual, unique program, right? You're the inventor of your recovery. You're the Edison of your
yeah,
recovery.
yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
yeah,
So that's kind of my like morning routine. And then I have scheduled rests throughout the day, and I try to do a somatic tool like once every hour. I don't really, but at least a few times through the day, I'll do some
that's
sort of
great.
somatic tool. And then pretty much taking a walk every day, usually for about 10, 15, sometimes even like 25 or 30 minutes, which is much more than I could do previously.
What could you
Um,
do previously with walking?
so previously, before I started the program, I some days I would do 25 or 30 minutes, but most days I did not because I was afraid to. And
Right,
because often I would walk for like I'd get to the edge of our property and my heart rate would be 130, 140, and I would just turn around and come back.
right.
So it was very up and down and up and down, and I could never really build momentum. Whereas
Sure.
with your guidance, I started with just that slow 5 minutes, and then I was able to increase just, still listening to my body, but like increasing over time, and then also increasing my pace too to like a more moderate pace, just kind of naturally
Right.
as I felt able to.
And you
Um,
remember how we say in the program that you increase duration, frequency, or intensity, like one at a
mhm.
time. So one of the things is not to increase them at the same time. So if you're increasing how frequently you're doing something, you don't want to increase the intensity and the duration. If you're increasing the intensity, how fast you're walking, then don't increase the duration and frequency. So that's one of the pacing tools that I teach in the program. Did you feel that was helpful at all in trying to learn how to expand the walking so that you could be more consistent with it?
Yeah, definitely. Using those tools and just having the confidence that I could do it because I just like felt a lot of trust in your process. And also, one of the supplements you recommended, Parasin Plus, really helped with the heart rate issue. So that enabled me to do more without the heart rate going up as much.
Oh, that's so
Um,
great. So
I
great.
I've told my doctor about that, and he's adding it into his
Oh,
toolkit now.
that's so great.
Yep.
Man, that makes me feel so good. That's so great to
Yeah.
do.
And I was able to, ask him about tests that you talked about in the program. And so, it's very much like enabled me to have a more um, educated conversation with him when I go in. Because I do think, like, for me at least, having that doctor helping me with the naturopath side of things is very important because I am still battling mold. There's still mold in my
Oh,
house,
100%.
unfortunately.
But you
Um,
can go in now and my belief is with doctors, you should be the helm of the ship. The doctor's there to
right.
serve you. So the more educated you are about what's going on with your condition and your body, and if he's the right kind of doctor with an open mind, then you're guiding. The doctor can be the one that you can't write scripts for tests. You can't decipher what the tests mean, but he can do those things. But when we go
Mhm.
to them looking for them to cure us, we take all our power away, whereas you're
Exactly.
empowering yourself and going there, and the doctor becomes another tool, another
Yeah.
way
I'm
of
not
getting
just at the
help.
mercy of like him figuring
Right.
out what's wrong with me. I can be a
100%.
part of that process. Yeah.
Yeah. You should be very proud that you do that, that you're doing that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much my story. I definitely recommend, I've been recommending your program to the other people I know who are sick because I think that you can't just rely on a doctor to fix you, and you can't just do brain retraining. At least most people can't. Like you really have to have that whole the whole picture, which
Sure.
I think the Edison effect does a really good job of addressing many different pieces of the recovery puzzle.
No, I'm so glad you shared all of that. Would you mind, I won't keep you if you need to go, but would you mind talking at all about the part of the program that involves group coaching, like how that the community aspect of it, if that was of any use to you, or the group coaching calls, and would you mind speaking
Yeah,
to that?
it was helpful. I remember in there's sort of like a community page where you can chat on different topics, and just like seeing a lot of resonance and other people experiencing similar things to me that I thought was maybe just me, you know. I was like, oh, okay, this is like I'm not the only one. This makes sense that we can kind of like understand each other better and like support
Sure.
each other a bit. Um, you know, of like for me especially, it was the feeling like kind of disconnected from your emotions and feeling like I feel fine. What do you mean I don't feel safe?
Right,
Like
like
of
the
course
free
I feel
state.
safe, but my
Right,
nervous system doesn't feel safe.
right.
So like understanding that those two things can coexist.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
you bringing a lot of light into that too, with like talking about fawning and freezing, and how, like, fawn is a one of the ways that we react in the freeze state. And
mm-hmm.
when you fawn, like, you might be like, there were people in the program, they're like, I feel happy all the time, like I feel completely fine. And then we dove more into it, and they were so disconnected.
Yeah,
And we talk about too, like, when I and then I'll answer your question, Brenda. When So I ended up working with a trauma therapist, which I wasn't ready to do until I was very well into my recovery, because I just wasn't able to do that. And I had some bad experiences like you did with
yeah,
EMDR earlier in my recovery, where it made me a
mm-hmm.
lot worse. But one of the things that she helped me understand was that a lot of folks that say that they're empaths, which I meet a lot of people with ME/CFS who are proclaimed empaths, and she helped me understand that being an empath is actually oftentimes a learned trauma response to growing up in an environment where you become hyper vigilant to your caretaker's emotions, and you become highly attuned at reading the emotions of other people in order to regulate the caretaker's emotions so that you can get your needs met and be safe. You have a gift for it, but it's also like well crafted through your childhood experiences. And she said that most folks, and I think this rings incredibly true with those who have ME/CFS, that most folks who have that gift, or in my case, I think people with ME/CFS, they have a highly attuned interpersonal emotional intelligence, which means I can't tell you how many people have talked to me and said, if someone's across the room and they're not feeling well or they're sad, like, I'll walk into a room and my whole energy goes directly to that person. I can feel what they're feeling immediately. And I lived my whole life that way, like just filleted open. Like I could feel everybody's emotions, and anybody could walk into my life, no boundaries. Anytime they could penetrate any part of me, there was no energetic boundaries or even physical boundaries. But what she said was that most folks with ME/CFS have very low intrapersonal intelligence, emotional intelligence, which means their ability to read their own emotional state is very poor. So they have a super, super high interpersonal intelligence. They can read other people's emotions, but their intrapersonal intelligence is quite low. And that was super, super true for me. I mean, I didn't realize that I had no ability to read how I was feeling. I couldn't feel like I was disconnected completely. And my intelligence was quite low. And healing from ME/CFS was quite a journey of, in one piece of it, was quite a journey of, what am I actually feeling? Like, for instance, learning that when you want to say no to something, what does that feel like in your body? Being able to identify the feeling of wanting to say no. What is it? What are the actual physical sensations of wanting to say no? Or when you have a red flag feeling about something or someone, I would just barrel right through that. Like, my body would send me the red flag feeling, but I would just barrel through it. In the case of the men I dated and relationships I had, and I've gotten so good at it now that when that feeling kicks in, even on a level of 2 out of 10, I know it feels like the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I know that I feel a warm feeling in my hands. I know that my ears get hot. I'm completely aware of exactly the sensations that are connected to the red flag. And so, I mean, for me anyway, healing it was so much a part of that. That's why I teach in the meditation to connect to your sensations. It's not just about being with them, It's about really feeling them and hearing them so that you can start to connect them to your emotional experience, and the two can come back together, the mind body connection, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And
um,
also having those somatic tools, because for me, I was kind of the opposite where I have very strong boundaries, but um, I was always just focused like, what am I doing next? What am I doing next? What
sure.
am I going to achieve? Like always like going outward and not so much focused inward,
And
and feeling really overwhelmed when I focused inward. Whereas now I have these somatic tools that you teach to like bring that overwhelm down and feel more like calm and truly safe, and on a nervous system level, not just like a brain level.
right, and understand, you can understand the difference between the two, which
Yeah,
is even that's
yeah,
hard to explain to people who haven't studied, that there's a difference between saying, yeah, I know I'm safe, and actually feeling the ramifications of the nervous system being safe, what that feels like in your body.
yep.
And there are folks too that I coach who will tell me they're not anxious. And there's one person I'm coaching right now who yesterday or day before yesterday called and said, I actually experienced a state different than the one I'm used to, that I think might mean that the one I'm living in is actually anxiety, because I like experienced a different state that feels so calm. It's not like my usual calm, it's like a different thing. And now I'm wondering if this, like what I call the home away from home, you know, in the program,
Yeah.
if this home away from home that I think is calm is actually anxiety, and I just have nothing to compare it to. It's like what I feel like normally in my body is actually an anxious activated state, but because I've lived in it for so long, it feels normal to me. And so I think it's okay. Let me just see if people are asking. Brenda, people have healed at all sorts of ages. I mean, I don't have, the program hasn't been long enough to tell you that everyone has, gotten well, but there's another person in the program, Petra Hans, who sent in a video to show to you guys. And I don't know how to share it. Like I have it, but I don't know how to share the video unless someone's Zoom tech smart and knows how to do that. I don't know how to share the video, but she's in her 60s, and she created a video testimonial to the Edison effect, and is doing so wonderfully. And I wish I could share it. Maybe I can share it in like a YouTube link to everybody. She couldn't be here, so she sent that in. But I mean, she's not fully recovered either. But the program that I did, it only launched a few months ago. So the people
Mhm.
that you're talking to, like Cassidy and Petra, they
Yeah.
they just finished the program, and the program is not like you do it and now you're like healed. It's a roadmap. Petra went back and she's working through all the videos a second time now, and talks about in the video that she sent to us about how many new gems she's getting from it going through it a second time. So you practice it until you're well, and then hopefully you carry the tools into your wellness and then help other people. But yeah, I mean, she's doing great, and she's in her 60s for sure. Um, so I guess, well, if you don't have anything else you want to share, I mean, I supremely appreciate you coming on here. This is so exciting for me, and
Yeah.
there's only about 20 people in here right now, but we're going to send it out to. There was like 150 people who signed up, so people are going to get to hear your story. And what would you say, like moving forward into the future before you go? Like, do you have a big macro expansion goal, like something you can't wait to do that's on the horizon, something that you're dreaming of right now?
This might sound a little strange, but when before the big crash that led me to Edison effect, I bought a rower because of the like POTS exercise program that I was supposed to do, which is a graded exercise program that led me into a huge crash.
Yes,
So I have a lot of
absolutely.
fear around it, and I'm looking at it right now. It's still sitting in my living room, and
Okay.
I am going to conquer that rower. I'm going to get on it, and it's going to be great. That's
Well,
my goal. I haven't
that's
done
a
it yet,
that's
but
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I still,
I still have that little tiny, I really shouldn't. I mean, I just hiked Costa Rica, and like was a completely insane experience, like 20,000 steps a day in the desert, like I mean in the jungle, like, but I still like when it comes to like running a 5K again, I still have a tiny little bit. And it's that coming home to yourself over and over and over again, because that's what MECFS strips from you. It doesn't really strip it from you. It's already missing, and MECFS points it out. It really is what it is. However, it's this coming back to you over and over and over again. So I'm actually setting a goal this fall to run a 5K. So we should stay in touch,
yeah.
and we can again, like even though I'm the coach, like you're coaching me too. It's like I might be the coach, but the people I'm working with are helping me as much as I'm helping them. So I would love to, stay in touch and hear how it's going with you and the rower, and as long as you keep using your expansion tools and your pacing tools, you'll conquer it for sure.
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence now, thanks to you, Ange.
Thanks so much, Cassidy. Wonderful to have you on. I so appreciate it.